Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready. Hi, everybody. I'm having technical computer issues here, so my computer's not up. That's what I'm stalling for, but we'll call the meeting to order right now. It's approximately 5:34, and this is our regular monthly meeting of Bartlett Regional Hospital Board of Directors. So first I want to start with Joe Warner, and he's going to give you our land acknowledgement.
Thank you. Little chiefs to the Tlingit, Haida, and Shishan people, we respectfully acknowledge them as the original inhabitants of Southeast Alaska. Bartlett Regional Hospital is located on the homelands of the Akwang. We are grateful to provide services in your ancestral homeland and to be part of this community.
Thank you, Joe. And we can do roll call, please.
James Bone. Max Birds.
Here.
Dr. Rester.
Here.
Lisa Peterson.
Here.
Hal Geiger.
Present.
Dr. Jones.
Here.
Kelly Deering.
Here.
Deb Johnston. Present. Nikki Sullivan Jones.
Present. Thank you. And can we get an approval of the agenda, please?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I second that one.
Good. Then we're going to go on now to public participation. Is there anybody in here that wants to participate, to speak? Now is your opportunity. Anybody online? All right. Hearing or seeing anybody, we will move on to our consent agenda. Madam Vice President.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
Thank you, Jen. Al. We'll go right to old business, and Kim is online with us. Hi, Kim. How are you?
Hi, Mr. Chair. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so the hospital update, we do have 6 employees out currently with COVID. We are seeing an uptick in the hospital as far as with our staffing and as well as in the community. So that is affecting staffing. CCU patient days for May was 99, Med-Surg 358, MHU 245 with a current census of 6, OB 91, Nursery 59. The ED saw almost 1,200 patients last month. Rainforest has a current census of 15, and Crisis since opening has seen a total of 41. We have several placements waiting. We have a total of, it looks like 11. We have 1 waiting for acute rehab, 6 that are waiting for SAR skilled, 2 waiting for long-term care, and 2 waiting for assisted living. They are working with all entities, including Wildflower Court and others within the state to get placement. And I will let Kim Stout give her census for and updates for Wildflower Court and home care and hospice in her report. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Kim? Anybody online? Great, Kim, I don't see any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Madam Vice President with the CEO search update.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are making good progress in the CEO recruitment committee. We are scheduled to meet on Thursday. We met on the 13th as well. Our staff screening committee has reviewed 58 candidates. So far, through their evaluation process, they've identified a total of 11 that they are going to put through an in-person Zoom or Teams interview. 3 candidates have already been through that process. There are 3 more interviews scheduled this week, and additional 5 that we're trying to coordinate with their schedules. Of the ones that were identified in that top tier 4 have removed themselves from the process. So we had a total of 15 that were identified. And it's now down to 11 that we're trying to work through. Staff screening committee is that their goal is to provide the selection committee, the recruitment committee with a total of 5 candidates to present to the committee, the screening committee to the committee for our online interviews with those, in which we will identify a total of 3. Our goal is to identify a total of 3 to bring up here for the board and the community meetings. Our goal is also to start that process, interviewing those 5 candidates the week of July 8th. So, after the 4th of July, or by the 8th. After we've completed, like I said, after we completed, the screening committee, the steering committee, recruitment committee, whatever we call ourselves, will identify 2 to 3 to bring up here. And hopefully that will happen in late July, early August. Questions?
Hey, Deb, this is Max. What's permissible for the board's participation in the evaluation of the candidates in terms of participating, asking questions? I've been a member of these committees in the past, but I just want to make sure I understand clearly as a board member what our allowed role is.
At this point, the non-committee members of the board can attend, but the search committee will make the decision to pass, or the recommendation, I should say, to pass forward. We would take input, but it's the committee's decision or recommendation that will come forward to the board.
So, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, or Madam Vice President, just to clarify this. So during this initial interview, Zoom interview that you'll have with the search committee, the board is invited to attend, but they won't be allowed at that time to ask questions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Does that answer your question, Max?
Yeah, and what about when we get it whittled to the 2 or 3 that you get to a finalist stage?
So we'll bring those 2 or 3 to the board meeting for approval of that panel to move forward. And there will be several opportunities for the full board to meet with those candidates when folks are on site.
So we plan on, after the finalists are chosen, then the board of directors will have an opportunity to interview them and possibly do exercises or whatever we'd like to do, correct?
The on-site is still a work in progress. The on-site experience for those candidates is still a work in progress, but we will have several opportunities for those candidates to meet with with city leadership, with staff, with senior leadership, with the full board. And hopefully we'll have some sort of exercise for each of the candidates to show their skills and their public speaking ability, those types of things.
How can board members or anyone else find out about those Zoom interviews? And
Well, we haven't scheduled them yet.
Yeah, but when they are scheduled, how would we find out?
We'll notify you.
And who exactly can tune into those? Those are not going to be able to.
They're not open meetings.
But the board member board members,
Um,
Madam Vice President,
Yes,
point of order. If a certain number of board members do attend.
that is true.
It would have to be publicly noticed, then we'd have to go into executive session for the interview, for that portion.
even if the board members are not allowed to speak.
We're in the same, yeah.
So, Madam Vice President and Chad, I think we're gonna have to work through this issue.
Yeah.
Because I think we may have to publicly notice that and go into executive session, because I do believe that we will have more than 3 board members there. I think that during this whole process from when we have the 8 or 9 or 10 candidates, I think that all of us that have the ability to want to log in and at least hear what happens and kind of see the candidates from beginning process. So that would be my recommendation. And of course, I'll go with what the board feels like.
So we are not planning for the full 11 candidates. We've already had 3 that have been interviewed. There are 3 more that are scheduled this week, and the additional 5 that are going through the screening committee. None of the committee members or the board will participate in that activity. That will be the staff screening committee that will take care of that phase of this process. Once we get into the Zoom meetings, this committee will ask questions. The board members can attend. We will, I should have said up front that we will have to notice and go into executive session. But that's when the board is going to start participating in the process.
So does Max, do you have any more questions, or Hal, do you guys have any more questions? You understand that?
Yes. I understand.
Max?
I guess I've got one follow-up. So the staff screening committee is going to result in how many candidates?
The staff screening right now has identified 15 candidates from what Deb's report said. 4 of the 15 candidates have taken themselves out of the running. So there's still 11 candidates in there that staff has not completely vetted. So they've vetted 3, and they plan on doing the rest in the next week or so.
So whoever survives,
they're going to get it down to 5. So they're going to get it down to 5. So you guys are going to vet all of them, right? But then you're going to bring the top 5 candidates to the committee, and the committee will do an interview. And then at that particular time, then the committee gets to meet them for the first time, and then the board is also welcome to go in and be part of listening to what happens. Is that correct?
Yes.
Max, is that clear?
no.
Okay.
The committee will
Go ahead,
Can I
Max.
just ask a question? So, and this is for Chad. Chad, why 5? I mean, is there a magic number there? I mean, why not 7? Why not 10? Why 5?
5 is a rough number. We're going to give you the qualified candidates that meet the qualifications, that meet the vetting. 5 is the target. We wanted to not waste. I mean, we've got 7 people that we're trying to get scheduled interviews with on the subcommittee alone. If we add members of the full board, that's a whole other group of folks we got to try to coordinate schedules for. So to have 10 or 15 plus interviews is just simply seems unreasonable to me.
Yeah, but it could be 6, it could be 7. I mean, if you're not.
Very low. And it could be 3.
So,
On the other side, if people, there's a variance on both sides of that.
Mr. President?
Yes, please.
So we will not be coordinating anybody else's schedules except for the committee in our steering process. So if there's a board member who would like to attend any of them, they would have to adjust. Any other questions?
Max, any follow-up?
I guess I just want to say that I don't want to have an arbitrary number of people that are forwarded to the committee. I think the committee's process is important in this. And there is a role for the staff process, but the staff shouldn't be overly critical. I mean, there could be a person, I guess I would rather the staff have a larger group than a smaller group for the committee. And when we leave it at 5, it seems to me that that's almost a finalist group, you know? You're almost giving it to staff to create a finalist group. And that concerns me a little bit.
Max, we've already discussed this. I will have the opportunity to take a look at all 15, or actually 11, because the 4 have eliminated themselves. I'll have an opportunity to take a look at those and pull up other candidates as well.
Thank you.
And then Max, also just complete transparency. Chad through this whole process has been showing Deb, and I know he showed me, I haven't read them, but he has showed us all of the candidates' CVs, and Deb was being the chair, and I don't know if
Shelley's had the
Shelley's had
opportunity.
the opportunity as well,
Yes.
being the co-chair, to look through all the CVs to make sure that nothing was missed.
And through the chair,
Please, Shelley.
I think, and I don't know if this is a missing piece, but those 50 plus people that put in applications, Chad and his group screened those, and what got knocked out of there were people who didn't meet the qualifications. And that's where that 11 comes from. And now Chad and his group has specific questions that they're asking to get a better idea of these candidates and who, when I did this process, when I hired, you quickly, in discussion with candidates, they were like, oh, that's what this is about. You had people step out there, or you learned that, there's people who are really interested in Juneau. And then we'll see those candidates. But we have all the resumes of the 11 people currently.
That's
The
correct.
group does.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Deb, do you have anything else?
I don't have anything else unless there's other questions.
Any other questions for Deb? All right. Thank you. Then we're going on to new business, which we don't have any tonight. So we're going to go right to Dr. Malter and let the staff report.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Business as usual at medical staff.
Great. Hear more later.
There might be more later.
Yes. Thank you very much. I'll go to committee updates. We'll start off with Max in finance. And, Max.
Yeah, thank you, Kenny. We had a broad discussion yesterday about this process that we have been through over the last month or so, which is, I think it's been a pretty good process. We've had a lot of hard work by our staff. Aaron probably comes to mind first, Joe, Ian, of course, Nate, Kim, everybody's had a part in developing these position papers, and it's been great that we've been able to work through this, quickly and judiciously. And I think we're kind of coming up with what I think is a fairly good set of resolutions for us to consider tonight. So the public comment is in the packet. You can see that there's 67 pages of public comment. And those comments don't include, of course, the ones that we received on June 4th and 10th in person. I think the number that Aaron gave us the other night was in the teens of the public comments. So at the meeting, so it's a good comment. The public has really weighed in on this well, and obviously there's a lot of passion and support around these programs in the community, and we're left with, of course, a very hard decision. Our financials yesterday, speak to the reason for this. We had a $1.3 million loss in April, the most recently available financial statements. And I think we're sitting at about $8.5 million loss or so on the year. And we're burning cash, and we've got to do something to address that. It's urgent. This is not something that we kick the can down the road on. So that, Kenny, I guess I'd move on to the pro forma. The pro forma is a draft that you have, and really the pro forma goes with resolution 3. And we asked at one of the meetings for staff to prepare essentially a business plan, if you will, kind of what this thing might look like in the future. Joe has started this. I'm going to kick it over to him to let him explain it a little bit more. But Joe has started this process. The one that we have in our packet is a draft. He's continuing to gather information on, and he'll continue to work through it quickly, but over the next 2 or 3 weeks to try to work that out a little bit more. Joe, do you want to add anything to that?
No, just this is a very early draft. There is a lot of work to be done on this. We continue to gather data specifically about reimbursement and trying to understand how Medicaid is going to be for some of these programs. We have a general idea how Medicare pays. Just understanding the mix so we can give you a good product to evaluate.
Yeah, thank you.
So this performer is in there, and I just want to just reiterate what Max has said was this performer came out of our June 10th meeting, and we had a lot of questions about home healthcare hospice, and Max had right at the end of the meeting asked Joe to put this together. So this was the first time that the full board together has seen this, but yesterday I asked if the whole board as much as possible could come to finance, and we did have a great showing, and the board members that didn't show up actually read it and had written me back comments on that. So now's a good time for the board members. If they have any questions about this performa, now's a good time to ask those questions. So is there any questions about that we can just send this right to Joe right now? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Max.
Yeah, maybe just a concluding comment on the pro forma. You'll see that change. This is a draft, and it is a work in progress. We discussed breaking out hospice and home care yesterday in finance. Joe's continuing to gather information. We've talked about, bringing in more information about potential donations related to hospice. There's a lot of pieces that need continued work on that front. So the resolution. So I won't go back through what we talked about yesterday, but other than to say that these were drafted by staff. I reviewed them. They were put across Kenny's email as well. And we, made some kind of a collaborative interaction about those. We brought them to finance yesterday. And so the version that you have in your packet is a fact changes version, if you will, and that it shows the changes in red that were made by the committee yesterday. And is Erin in the room? I don't see Erin there.
Yes, she is here, Max.
Yeah, Erin, did I capture that right? So what we've got here essentially is track changes. Is that right in red?
Yes, correct. Anything in red reflects changes that came out of Finance Committee yesterday. What was added, and there's strike throughs where language was deleted and or replaced, so you can clearly see the activity.
Great, thank you. So Dr. Raster, who was unable to attend, provided some input to Kenny about each one of these, and we read and considered his input. And Dr. Jones had information or had input with respect to resolution 3 that he gave to Ian, and that has been incorporated as well. So at this point, I think we need to, I guess, I'm not sure where you want to go with this at this point, Kenny, other than to say there are the resolutions and I guess, work through them how you want to.
Thank you, Max. And thank you and your committee for your hard work. And I know that you've spent, hours and hours of time on this, working with Joe and Ian and Erin to make sure that we got these in packet and get all the information out to the public. And we also want to just take an opportunity right now on behalf of the board to all public, just thank you very much for your comments and being very engaging. I can tell you that every board member read every single comment and referenced them several times during our meetings and in our public meetings in the last month. So again, thank you very much for the comments. With that, yesterday we have an action item that came out of finance, which are these resolutions right here. Now, the action item was first and seconding, so they are a live item on the floor. All we will do is take a vote on them. It looks like the way that this action item is written, they are all lumped in together. So now is the time to take comment from the board. And we'll start with Hal.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to be so picky about this, but I would like to offer an amendment. I'm looking at resolution 3, and looking at the bullets down in the conclusion, and now therefore. They all are dependent clauses that start with a lowercase letter, but in the second bullet, in the middle of it is this whole sentence that starts with a capital letter. And I would move that we put that in parentheses, and that would solve that small punctuation problem. So where it says any potential third-party operator would be subjected. I'd ask that just be put in parentheses.
I don't have any problem with that. Any board member have any problem with it?
No.
No. Good. Max, good.
No.
Okay. That change, grammatical change, which does not change any substance, will be put in there. So I don't think we need to vote on that as anything except for grammatical change. Okay. Anybody else have anything other than?
Kenny, I've got a suggested change to number 4.
Resolution number 4.
And this was on just further consideration of these today. The second bullet, I think that we should eliminate after the but not limited to, comma, eliminate from the word JAMI or NAMI, Juno, and Juno Suicide Prevention Coalition. Eliminate the specific reference to entities and not to exclude them in any way, but in the fact that I don't think it's a complete list. And so I can think of 2 and probably others that should be included. And my preference would be that we just say simply collaborate with key stakeholders to explore alternate sustainable service models for those experiencing behavioral health emergencies.
Dr. Jones.
I mean, I put this in, I really want to have them there. I want to bring them in right away. I want to know they're part of this thing, they're part of it. So I think that this allows other people to be in, but specifically identifies what I think are the 2 most important organizations in here that I really want to sit at. I want to let them know this is what happened, because they've reached out to me many, many times. I want to say, it's time to talk with the people at the C-suite up here, and let's figure out what we can do to deal with these things. So I think it allows other people that I like to have in there.
So the way it reads is collaborate with key stakeholders, including but not limited to NAMI, Juno, and Juno Suicide Prevention Coalition, to explore alternate substance services models for those experiencing behavioral health emergencies. What's the rest of the board think about that?
I like the wording as is, because it identifies NAMI, Juno, but then it allows everyone else that might be in the community that would want to help, to Max's point. So I don't see a problem with the wording.
I could go either way, but just what I've just heard, my preference would be to read it in.
I can go either way. You know, as the others have said, it doesn't eliminate other participants, of which I can think of a handful in this community.
So Shelley or
all my report on it, I just think that we're bigger than just 2 the concern is recognizing two entities when we have many other entities that are, and I get the fact that you've got this catch-all net, and I get the fact that these folks are passionate about it, but we're still excluding by omission the ones that we haven't included. And I just think that, but you know, it just seems to me that it would be stronger, frankly, to include all stakeholders, because it would require that we make sure that we're casting our net wide, you know, Jammy, Search, you know, there's many out there that potentially would be significant to this process. And it just seems to me that if we leave them out, it's not excluding them, but it's simply recognizing the fact that we've got key stakeholders out there. But having said that, you know, it's like, in the final analysis, it's not a huge thing for me.
Lisa or Shelley, do you have anything, any comment on this?
I'm kind of, I could go either way. I see both sides of it.
And Lisa?
I'm on the same thing. I think it can go either way.
I'm leaning more to keeping the language as it is, mostly because these are the two organizations that have really reached out to us and also had come and written us comments and spoken to us. So I'm on the fence of leaving the language as is with the catch-all in there. This is included but not limited to. So that would be my thought. Definitely can take a roll call vote on this. So
there's no need. I'll remove my suggested change.
Okay. Suggested change is removed. Thank you, Max. Is there any other comments or discussions concerning any of these resolutions? I know we spent a lot of time in our work session yesterday working on these. All right, so like I said again, this is an action item that came out of finance. So it has been, you know, on the table. It has been seconded. Because this is such an important vote, we're going to do a roll call vote on this. So I'll turn it over to him.
Approving the resolutions as presented in the packet. Jim Cohen's not here. Max Mertz,
Yes.
Dr. Rester,
Yes.
Dr. Jones,
Yes.
Lisa Peterson,
Yes.
Al Geiger,
Yes.
Kelly Deering,
Yes.
Deb Johnston. Yes. Amy Solomon Gross.
Yes.
Resolutions approved.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you all for your hard work. Max, is there anything else you want to talk about in finance from the committee?
No. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm moving right along, and we're going to go right to Ian, our administrative report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I put a quote in here that the man that moves the mountain begins by carrying away small rocks. We have some momentous tasks to achieve, but I wanted to give both a very broad perspective, at the same time give details so we know both the mountain and the stones. The first thing that you have to realize is we have three basic things that we have to resolve. One is improving the hospital finance, going through the disposition of these entities, which we just completed in terms of decision, but there's still more work to do. And then determining how we're going to grow and compete at the same time. Each of these are necessary, but each of them are not sufficient to carry the day. We have to do all three very well. So what I wanted to do is make sure that you knew that leadership is moving through these fairly rapidly. And I won't go into all the details, but improving the hospital we've been working on. I think James had asked us to do a little bit more description of what those things are. And so we're prepared to do that at our next meeting, but we wanted to get through this meeting first. Then we've been working since maybe just before the budget hearings in April on the disposition of these different entities. And the third thing is we're working on growth, focusing on basically two major areas, women's services as well as orthopedic. We do have the opportunity to do more diagnostic imaging of cardiovascular disease because we have the new equipment. But those are at least the two that we're focusing on. So I just kind of think that it's important to sometimes say, here's the big things we're doing, here's all the little things we're doing. I think we're ready to start describing what we've been doing at the hospital level, the results that we're getting, because you're going to start seeing improvements in our bottom line for two reasons: the actions that we've done, plus it's summer season, so our volumes are going up. So what we want to do in the next meeting is, especially the finance committee, but the board, is start describing the activities that we've taken on the hospital side. So now that you're through this big, mountain, we still have more work to do. We can start on the other big issue of how to improve the hospital finance. Then towards the end of the summer, we want to talk about competition and growth opportunities. So that's kind of the schedule of those things. At our last board meeting, we also talked about bringing to the board just an update on the principles that we believe are important for a small hospital to engage in when it looks at its organizational structure. And for that, I'm yielding my time over to Chad so that he can give you what those principles are. These are things that I've seen work in other organizations. If I was in a much bigger organization, like a 20-bed hospital system, I would have different ones. But there are some tried and true things that we need to make sure that are embedded in our organizational structure. So I'll turn it over to Chad.
Chad.
So as you recall, last month, we kind of alluded to the fact that we were going to be going through a process, and this is one of the steps in that process. Doing organizational design and ensuring they're rooted in principles is incredibly important to an organization to ensure consistency and longevity in that structural and in that design. So ensuring that we all agree with the principles, the fundamentals, the foundation with which we're building our organization on is that starting point. So the first one is fiscal responsibility. So in all instances, the fixed cost of the total management team is a consideration to ensuring the hospital sustainability. Salaries and benefits are significant to the organization, and as a rule, it's important to ensure that fixed costs are kept as low as possible to ensure the break-even point is as low as possible. Additionally, ensuring organizational design for our organization considers our reimbursement, our model, how we do things. That's obviously important. If we were in a different model, we might handle things a little bit differently. Number two would be layers of management. To achieve a fiscal responsibility, the number of layers of management between the CEO and frontline staff should be as few as possible. A flat organization allows for greater communication, more rapid deployment of initiatives, and in small hospital environments, too many layers of management will be perceived as fiscally wasteful, which can be. Also a barrier or an impediment to a collegial and friendly work environment. Number three is span of control. I think we all heard a lot about that over the last few years. But the span represents the number of departments and full-time equivalents reporting to each leader. It's common to see clinical and non-clinical split between the leadership of the organization. And an optimal span of control is somewhere between 7 and 12. And again, that's a rough number, Max. Number four is small hospitals, you end up wearing multiple hats. The cost of overstaffing expert leaders can just be unsustainable. Small hospital leaders need to wear multiple hats, take on departments and tasks that are not specific to their expertise. In organizations like ours, it is far more effective to hire and develop frontline managers with oversight of a high quality leader. Number five, and the final one for Barlow Hospital, is decision-making with key stakeholders. So for efficient decision-making, the hospital's leadership team must be composed of the appropriate stakeholders involved in both the clinical and non-clinical aspects of the entire organization. The CEO must consider the advice and counsel of these stakeholders to make good and balanced decisions while understanding the ramifications of decisions on the various parts of the organization. So what are our next steps? So as Ian alluded to, we want to take this process, we want to make sure it's thoughtfully done. So for the first week of July, we plan to partner with the senior leadership team and leaders of the organization to get input on rooted in those drivers. The second week, we would unite that input with the best practices and those drivers to build the structure. Week 3, we would discuss any potential changes with the team. And week 4, we would come back to the board with the specifics of any changes that are done. So in summary, in a rapidly changing healthcare environment with skilled competitors, speed of implementation and effective communication can be a major tool to successfully compete. The organizational structure that we put forth will embody these principles, balancing the effective structure with industry standards and best practices, and maintain in perpetuity our fiscal responsibility.
I have 2 things that I'd like to add there. We are a small hospital. And as a small hospital, you have to be very careful about item cost. And the biggest cost in the organization tends to be upper leadership as well as certain physicians. Obviously, physicians are very important because they provide care. So we have to look at our organizational structure, not only in terms of what we can achieve, but is it cost effective for an organization that has roughly less than 30 patients a day? And are those resources better redeployed to lower down the leadership levels or to other things that we can do? Keep in mind, healthcare is a variable revenue business. You see 1 patient, you get paid for 1 patient. You see 2, you get paid for 2, you get 3. But it's a very high fixed cost business. So if we want to survive in a low volume environment where volume goes very low in the wintertime to moderately good in the summertime, our fixed costs need to be as low as possible. And that has to start with leadership. The second thing is that we are not a PPS hospital. Most PPS hospitals are paid on a DRG basis, and they need a different organizational structure for that. We are on a cost-based structure, and one of the things that we've done organizationally, we put in businesses into our cost-based structure that hurts our reimbursement. And so someone, I'll just use Kim here as an example, since I used her this morning. If I was here when that business was started, I would have said, put it into a separate organization so we can maximize hospital reimbursement. Every time you co-mingle 2 businesses, one cost-based and one that's reimbursed under a different method, you have to allocate costs to them. And so we also have to look at the organizational structure in light of cost-based reimbursement, which is number 1. So the rule of thumb is the higher she sits, the less costs are allocated away from the hospital. So right now she reports to Kim. Is that the best structure? Maybe. Kim's, pretty capable in terms of nursing and other things like that. So it's not a bad decision, but from a reimbursement point of view, it suboptimizes our reimbursement. So is there a better decision, a way to do that? Those are the things that we're trying to embed in here, but the principles are there, not only for you to give us feedback, but as you go through new areas, what you don't want is to layer on a lot of fixed cost that doesn't have anything to do with clinical care. You have to be very careful because you're in a very small market. And so it's even more important here than I would say that it was. So for example, like St. Joe's Hospital, which is almost 500 beds down in Tacoma, they're 120% busy because the growth of that market far exceeded our ability to put beds because of certificate of need. And so fixed costs make a difference there, or a little bit, because they had so much volume. Here we have the exact opposite problem. Low volumes and no volumes. Half the year, the other half. So fixed cost and our leadership structure has to be as low cost as we can get it. It has to also be able to have generalists, specialize in one area, but generalize in another area. That pushes leadership down. to the people that keep the hospital going, quite frankly. And I think they're pretty darn good, right? And it makes them more satisfied if they're more involved in key decisions. So their principles are there to help us formulate what's the best way to do this. There may be other principles, but these are the ones that off and on I've used many times and found them to be useful to thinking about the organizational structure.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for me?
Working in this organization, I just have to say, I think it's a great way to look at things. Particularly our employees really like that collaboration with senior leadership. And the more that works together, I think the better we're at providing better care and keeping up satisfaction. So I appreciate it.
And one question I've asked my leadership team is how do we get closer to that group in terms of working more collaboratively together? Because we only meet them once a month, and that's probably not enough. But it can't be our agenda. It has to be a combined agenda. What are the issues they need to bring up? What are the issues we need to push down? So we're going to work on that. Anyways, thank you, Chad.
Thank you, Chad. Do you have any more for your report?
No, everything else you can read.
Thank you very much. I just think we have some really great momentum going. So thank you for your leadership here and Chad pointing this out to us and just helping us where we're going. Kim, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. We really haven't had very many changes at all in home health. We continue to wait on our provider number. We still don't have it yet. I'm hoping by the end of July we will, but it's a sit and wait game with CMS. We're currently at 19 patients as of today in home health. On our hospice services, our average daily census is running at 7. We did have several expirations just recently, which is in my report. And our average length of stay for the quarter in hospice is 68.8 days. So that's a little bit because our censuses went down too, though, and we have some long lengths of stay. On the Wildflower Court side, you can see on the average daily census graph on the back, our census has dropped. It was due in part to the fact that we did have a outbreak of COVID and we did stop admissions about the first 10 days of June. We have begun taking admissions because we have basically been free. We've had one case of COVID now since around the first week of June. So we're doing real well with that over there. We are at today, well, I know by the end of this week, we're going to be at 48 in Wildflower Court. And by the end of the month, we should be hitting close to 50, which is a good census for us at Wildflower Court with the staffing that we have. So other than that, billing's going well for Wildflower Court now. We're all operational with all of our billing, and I did get our license today, which I sent our renewed license with underneath Bartlett from our survey. So all's good and well.
Thank you, Kim. Anybody have any questions for Kim concerning Wildflower Court, home health care, hospice? So I see in your report we have several patients waiting to get in now admitted into Wildflower Court. Is that correct?
We always have a waiting list. Many of them are not ready to come in yet. So now we had, whenever I wrote this, we had several pending admissions, but we have admitted them. We have some that we do not always accept. They're too high. Their acuity's much higher than what I have the staffing to be able to provide. They have to have a safe discharge disposition. So there are some that we do decline, but as a whole, we try to accept everything that we can get in a timely manner.
So, just quickly about home healthcare, is there a waiting list out there, or we have plenty of?
In home health,
Home health, yeah.
I know Heather is on the phone, and we have admits that come in nearly every day in home health. I worked down there the first week of June, and we vet those to make sure that they meet homebound criteria, that they have on the home health side, people have to understand that in home health, you have to have an end in sight. We're not a forever service. There has to be an end in sight, and they have to be considered homebound. There's a lot of criteria on that homebound. And there needs to be somebody willing and able to learn how to, whether it's the patient themselves or a person in the home that's willing and able to learn what we are training them and teaching them to learn to be able to live at home. So we get a lot of referrals, but they don't all meet home health criteria to admit. Heather, do we have a waiting list? Are you still on? See your name on there now.
That's fine. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. So maybe next month you can just let us know, if we have a waiting list for the service or not.
Yeah, to my knowledge, the last time I looked, we did not have a waiting list.
Anybody else have any questions? No? Thank you again, Kim. I don't see Mr. Palmer on here, so we'll have no legal update. Okay, and we'll go to Maria.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Director of Public Foundation.
Yes, so I'm happy to report that we have 31 complete applications for the Edelman, and the scholarship committee is reviewing those. And we hope to proceed with that and make announcements by the end of this week. So that's pretty good from what we've had in the prior years. We had the wildlife cruise last Saturday, and 77 people were in attendance. It was a gorgeous day, and there was quite a few whales out there, so that was nice. If you missed it, you have to wait till next year. And right now, our focus is on planning for the appreciation dinner, which is the big roast that we have, and it's scheduled for August 24th. Trying to format this a little different. Working with some community partners, some corporate donors to try to have a match component, and we're going to focus that on hospice. There is a lot of talk in the community about let's have some fundraisers, and then there's also the other side. It's always a 50-50 community. I'm like, let me wait and see what happens and the calls. And the other challenge that we have is that we share the same pool of donors with everyone else in town. So there is some activity community-wide for some donations, larger ones for hospice this year. So that takes away from other side of donations. Just balancing that at the moment. We also continue to participate in discussions with the CBJ Tourism Manager and Coastlines agencies for logistical support here at Bartlett, specifically for unreimbursed expenses that happen after patients are discharged, and staff gets involved in that, and we need support. So those conversations are ongoing. We're happy to report that we're hosting a RIIN, Rural Immersion Institute of the North student. She is a pre-med student at Washington State University, and her focus is on OB. She's doing rotations with Dr. Dressel and also at OB here. She started today and will be with us until Friday. And we're hosting her at the Yucatan House. Exciting times. Then there's a chart there for the investment through the end of May, and that does reflect hesitation in donations that we're seeing right now. That's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Maria. Does anybody have any questions? See any questions? Thank you very much. So it's Wade is not here, so we will not have a CBJ liaison report today. My report is basically we've had a very busy month. And again, I want to just thank the board for everybody participating in all of our meetings with the public and listening to comments and listening to the public. So we were able to come up with some resolutions that we'll be able to pass on forward. We'll just continue going forward. Looking forward to the structural changes that Ian and Chad spoke about today. Again, just want to thank everybody for working so hard. I know this is a tough time for all of us, and just appreciate everybody's input and working hard. With that, we're going to go right to the board calendar and pop that up. And looks like 4th of July. Hey, Deb, did you want to have a planning committee meeting right after the 4th of July on the 5th?
Is that a suggestion?
It's a recommendation.
I think we talked about it a long time ago, and folks were going to be in town, but now's our opportunity to change our mind, those of you who are on the planning committee.
Sadly, I have no plans.
I remember that, neither do I.
So we will have it on the 5th?
I'll have it
Okay,
on
the
the
planning
5th.
committee will be on the 5th. And Dr. Jones' quality is fine? Perfect. And Max, you good with the 12th for finance?
Yep.
And compliance, Hal, looks like you got it in there. And our board of directors meeting will be on the 23rd. And I think the calendar looks good. Someone want to make a motion?
I move we approve the calendar.
All right. Dr. Jones.
Second.
Dr. Astor seconds it. Thank you. Seeing no objections, the calendar is approved. Now we've come to board comments and questions. Anyone from the board want to make any comments, questions?
Hey,
Oh, I'm sorry.
At one point, there was some discussion about possibly having another joint committee with the assembly. Is there any further discussion about that, or is that tabled at this point?
Let me refer that to you. Ken, you met with Katie today. Did they talk
Yeah, when I
about
met
that?
with Katie, she was talking about a meeting on the 15th, ready for it. And that's when I'm out in Glacier Bay. I didn't mention it that because I wasn't quite sure what the agenda is. But I think we'll have that. We'd be absent or reschedule that.
So Max,
I'll
that's
talk to you about it tomorrow.
great. So Max, that's definitely on the horizon. It probably will happen in July. We just got to hammer out a date.
But right now, the 15th is that what I heard Ian say is kind of the
Yeah,
date?
that's what was mentioned to me by Katie today.
Okay.
Ian is out of town that day, so I think we really want Ian here. We'll keep going with that and get something out there soon. Yes, they probably want us to be in there on that, so we'll see. Hal.
Yes, Mr. Chair, one of the things that I think that this board as a whole should have some training in, or some discussion of, these decisions like the Ito versus Copper River Native Association, these decisions that have come down having to do with organizations that are run by Native organizations in Alaska and the possibility of litigation. So there's been a couple of decisions. I think there's been a decision in the U.S. Supreme Court, and Ito versus the Copper River Native Association is in the Alaska Supreme Court. And I've been waiting for us to have an opportunity to meet with our legal representative and bring that up. But I would ask that you would assign that to some committee to have some. I think there's a very important topic that we as a board don't understand, and there's some important liabilities for this hospital.
What's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, we do have two landmark cases, one at the state, one at the Supreme Court. So I'm working with Rob Palmer right now to understand the import of those in terms of how it might affect our ability to compete against Surge. So we're kind of in the process of trying to understand those laws. So I think the timing in the next 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks would be good as we get a little bit better understanding of those laws as well as some others. So in terms of what committee it should go through, that would be up to the board. But you could put it through finance, you could put it through planning, you could put it through
Just,
any of the committees.
well, just to be clear, I'm not as concerned about competing as I am about liabilities for the hospital. If there's
Right.
litigation.
That is, well, that's one of the components that we're looking at the liability. We have 22 or 23 search providers that work in this hospital. So the question is, if we had a joint problem, how would that go? So that's on Rob's radar.
Thank you.
Both of those, I think, are fairly new. At least the state one is. The Supreme Court is probably a couple of months older.
So we'll work through that and
Okay, and we come back.
come back to that.
Okay.
I just had one comment. I just wanted to tell Ian how I appreciate how you and your team have been so deliberate and so transparent and so open into bringing the whole issue about our financial problems and the sources and the possible solutions to the board, to the community. It's tough, but I can't imagine a better person and a better team to bring that up. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I would say a lot of it's our team. But I did want to reveal my hidden agenda, and that is I want Bartlett to be successful. So we're working hard on that.
Thank you. Any other board members? Comments, questions? All right, so we will take a break right now. It's 6:35. We'll take a break till 6:45, and then we'll come back and go right into executive session. For the record, I'm going to go into executive session and
Oh, you, Mr. Chairman, if you want to get the exact word, let's see, what page am I supposed to have? Is that, okay. I move that the Board of Directors of Bartlett Regional Hospital recess into executive session to discuss several matters, including those which by law, municipal charter, or ordinance required to be confidential or involve consideration of records that are not subject to public disclosure, specifically the credentialing report, medical staff meeting minutes, patient safety dashboard, and union negotiations, and possibly to discuss Bartlett Regional Hospital litigation, specifically a candid discussion of facts and litigation strategies with the Bartlett Regional Hospital and city attorney. I don't think the attorney's here. And I also, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that you be allowed to decide which staff to include in the meeting.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Thanks, Deb. Okay. For the beginning part, I have no problems with all the stuff that's in here, and she'll remove anybody that's online. As you know, just a reminder too, if you're online, make sure you're in a private area, no one can hear your conversations, and of course, with that, we're removing people from online into a room. And we will start the executive session with Dr. Malter in about 1 minute. I don't see any objections to us coming out of executive session. We'll move everybody back in, and then at that point, we will have Madam Vice President make a couple of motions. All right.
Are we ready?
Vice President. Yes, we are ready. We are ready.
I move we accept the credentialing report as presented.
Second. Hey, credentialing report. I see no objection to that. Report is accepted. Madam Vice President.
do I need a motion for the
No,
other? I didn't think
just
so.
direction.
This is just to notify that the board of directors has given direction to the executive director of human resources and our panel negotiating the union contract on the
Perfect. All right. That being said, thank you guys very much. Quick meeting today. We are adjourned.
It's sort of a bit complicated, really. All the work was done yesterday.
Yeah.
All the wordsmithing,